music to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Pun Kelly, get caught in the fray. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor pulls the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Machine Pun Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts flow.
Hey there, Machine Pun Kelly coming at you on a Sunday, which is not something I normally do, but I wanted to today for various reasons. If you're on Twitter right now and you have the wherewithal, if you wouldn't mind clicking on the YouTube link, it's better for me if you watch on YouTube than if you watch on Twitter, but if it's a inconvenience, don't worry about it. It's still fine if you watch on Twitter. I was doing some thinking. I started watching. Why am I doing this today as opposed to on a weekday? Why am I coming at you on a Sunday? And it's because I just started doing some thinking last night. You ever do that? You start thinking about something and you can't sleep, and so you stay up all night thinking about a thing. Anyway, that happened to me last night. Maybe you don't do that, but I do that a lot. Anyway, I was thinking last night, and I was thinking about. I started watching. I'm rewatching The Last of Us, which, by the way, is a really, really good show. But if you've seen the show and you've seen episode 3, it's got like Nick Offerman is a gay guy that meets another guy and they live this life together, and then his what I guess you would call his husband ends up getting some kind of fatal disease, and so they both commit suicide together. But without getting into the whole suicide part of thing, there was a lot of controversy when it came out because there was this, basically the entire episode was dedicated to this gay marriage, and especially because, the actor had kind of like this manly man, I eat steak sort of persona. And I just thought it's like one of the better episodes of TV I've seen is that one episode. But as I was watching that, I was like thinking, why do the Republicans want to define what love can mean between two people? I obviously, I don't want to say that extends to, adults and children, or the kind of nonsense that they try to equivocate it with. It's like, oh, first you accept gays and then you accept pedophiles, and it's like, no, there's a big difference between two adults having a relationship and an adult having a relationship with a child. And if you have to be that dishonest to have a discussion, there's no point in having a discussion. But I just started thinking. So I started thinking about love, just in general, the idea of love, and not just love in a romantic relationship, but love in any kind of relationship. One of my favorite movies of all time is Everything Everywhere All at Once, because it's a love story, if you think about it. And there's somewhat there's the love story between her and her husband, but not in a traditional way where they meet and fall in love and then have some sort of thing happen and then they, like not that kind of rom-com nonsense. No, I mean like the brutality of life kind of wearing away at your marriage for years and years and decades and finding the real value in that relationship. But the other love story is the love story between her and her daughter. And there are a lot of ways to love. And so I started thinking a lot about love. What does love mean? And I mentioned this to my wife one time because I think to me love is not just an emotion. Love is a motivation that inspires action. And that action is kindness. Like kindness is love expressed. If there's no kindness, there is no love. And so I was thinking about all of this and just how there's no love in MAGA. Like there's no kindness in MAGA. Like if you were to go and review everything to do with MAGA, every single policy, every single thing, it's almost like, like we always say, the cruelty is the point. It's not just that there's no kindness, it's the opposite of kindness. Cruelty is the opposite of kindness. And so that's what defines MAGA is cruelty, not kindness. But they want to say, and this is where my mind was kind of getting blown a little bit, is they want to say that they're like Christian. And I'm a Christian. I've mentioned it a few times. I don't try and shove that down people's faces and I don't argue about it. Like if somebody doesn't want to be a Christian, that's up to them. I'm always open to talking about my faith with people, but if they don't want to talk about it, I'm not gonna force them to, because I think that's counterproductive anyway. But if we're talking about the Christian faith, I spent 15 years as a minister, and I've read the Bible a lot, and I've read the Church Fathers, and I've read a lot of other Christian literature. So it's like I'm not inept on the topic of theology. And so I do want to say one thing. God is love. That's like, if you're talking about the Christian faith, God is love. And you can't sit there and talk about we're a Christian nation, and then at the same time argue for a nation where the priority is cruelty, because that's not a Christian nation. That's a satanic nation. So like Rob here says, Nazis equals MAGAs equals Tea Party equals neocon equals Christian GOP, which equals nothing whatsoever to do with the Bible. And so, I know there are a lot of people that are turned off to Christianity because of the Christian right. But the Christian right, just so we know, has nothing to do with being a Christian. It's actually the antithesis of the Bible. It is about cruelty. It's not about love. It's not about kindness. And I was just thinking about kindness. And, like the arresting people for like being here illegally and accusing them of being terrorists. starting trade wars that are going to destroy just millions of lives. Like there's no kindness involved at all. And I mean, like I know, like Neverfall, I know Christians that do help people. Like I personally have helped people, and I know other Christians that have helped people, but not MAGA Christians. So, like I would just say you haven't met the right Christians. And so anyway, I was thinking, like my wife, I'll just mention her. My wife is honestly the kindest person I have ever known. And Neverfall, I know your wife is a kind person too. So I'm not saying that you need to be Christian to be kind. Like my wife, she got scammed by this Nigerian guy and taken for like a couple of $1,000s. And so at first she reported it to the police, and then she found out he was still like this 18-year-old kid. And she didn't want to, and he was like going to have to go to a Nigerian prison for the rest of his life. And she just wanted her money back initially. Well, she found out what was going on, and he was like, like really, really poor and all of this stuff. So she ended up, she bought a business for him. And, I fully funded his business and then kind of walked him through how to set it up, got his mom on board, got the cops on board to help him out. It was like she went through all of this stuff for somebody that had scammed her. And, like there was another time where somebody my dog was in the backyard. He found this squirrel. So the dog caught the squirrel, and she tried to save the squirrel's life. And so she had it in this little box, and there was all this stuff going on. And then, so she went on Facebook and did a search and found where the squirrels would what is, oh, so anyway, so she found this squirrel and tried to nurse it back to health, and then she went on Facebook to find a place that she could take it to, and she couldn't find anything. And then somebody like said that they do these kind of rescues, and so she said okay, and then this lady came over and she took her squirrel. And then like a few days later, she saw this lady had a snake and was feeding, probably fed the squirrel to the snake. And so my wife was like so sad. Anyway, she spent like 2 weeks just feeling like she had been responsible for this squirrel dying. I don't know how to explain it. My wife is not perfect. She's got, like her own issues and stuff. But I love her because she is the kindest person I have ever known. Like she does things for other people. We had a friend that her husband was beating her and her children, so we paid for her hotel room for like 2 months, so that she could get away from him and be safe. Like we've known people where they've had financial problems, and so she'll be like, "Can we pay for this person's Netflix bill for a while?" or whatever. Like that's just who she is. If she can do something for somebody, she will do it. When there's every time she's got a reputation as being the person who takes care of all the animals on the street. Anytime, if there's like a neighbor that has an issue with an animal, she'll take care of it. If there's a stray, she'll rescue it. If there's a dog free, she'll take it back to its owner. She's a very, very kind person. And that's why I love her. And she's a Christian. But this is, to me, what it means to be a Christian is not you run around telling other people who they can date. No, being a Christian means you manifest kindness to everyone. Like, anyway, I was just thinking about that, like how much of a contrast there is between MAGA and actually what it means to be a Christian. So I just wanted to, like bring that up and talk about that a little bit, and then I'm going to go through and go through some of the talk shows from this weekend and play a few video clips and talk about those. And somewhat, I'll try and bring these things back up. Why is that not working? Okay, anyway. Okay.
But he's also dead serious that if we can't figure this out at the negotiating table, then there are other options, to include my department, to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear bomb. We hope.
So he just literally threatened Iran with war. My department. What does that mean?
We never get there. We really do, Maria. But what we're doing with the Houthis and what we're doing in the region.
What we're doing with the.
We've shown a capability to go far, to go deep, and to go big. And again, we don't want to do that. But if we have to.
I just, like the kind of casual reference to, yeah, we'll go to war with Iran. I think that somewhere there's, when we're just talking about kindness, yeah, I don't think that war is kind. That's just me. Maybe I'm wrong.
To prevent the nuclear bomb in Iran's hands.
And it's anyway. There's like a lot there, and maybe I'm in the minority here, but it's kind of hard to how does America have the right to tell other countries whether or not they have the right to nuclear weapons? I mean, if you think about it, would if Iran told us we couldn't have nuclear weapons, would we be cool with that? It's just something I've always thought of. And maybe I'm wrong. And I'm not saying like the Iranian government doesn't have its issues. I just wonder where America gets off acting like it's allowed to tell Iran what it can and can't do, or we're going to go and we're just going to kill your citizens if you don't do what we said. Okay. Here's another one.
Exclusive. Secretary, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Of course.
Tell us about the trip and what are the most important takeaways that we need to understand about the Panama Canal.
Well, President Trump said in his State of the Union address, China has too much influence over the Panama Canal and America's going to take it back. And that's exactly what I was charged to do, what we're continuing to do. China's influence cannot control our own backyard, especially a critical waterway.
Why not? Why is it that China and Panama cannot have their own relationship? I mean, and we're also like, just to be clear, what he's saying is hyperbolic nonsense. But why is it that we feel like we can control what is going on in the Panama Canal and China can't? Why not? Like, give me an actual reason. He's like, oh, well, it's our region. Well, don't we try and influence the region that China's in? What about Taiwan? Does that mean that we're just going to stay away from Taiwan? And I'm not saying there's not geopolitical stuff that is involved here. What I am saying is that their reasoning is way whacked. And that's and so as a result, their strategy is way whacked. We have better ways of trying, and their premise is whacked. Like, it's not our waterway, it's Panama's. It has been for like decades. So what gives us the right to
terrain
to
like
say
the
how
Panama
they're
Canal.
using it?
You mentioned 40% of ships are U.S. ships. 75% are going to or from a port. So we were able to secure
75% are going to a, like, what is that? So, like, ships go from ports to ports, and some of them go through the Panama Canal.
historic agreements. One with the Panama Canal Authority, that our ships, our military vessels and auxiliary vessels will travel first and free through that Panama.
Why? Why do we get to go first? Why do we get to go free? Like, why? Why? Give me an actual reason why. Like, the part of their whole thing is that every country in the world needs to put America first. Well, why can't Panama put Panama first?
Canal. And then we also signed a memorandum of understanding with the defense secretary over there and the president that established a robust and growing U.S. presence, right? You need to secure that.
So I don't know what all that is. So, okay, we've got a couple of comments here on things. Iran has oil. Oil is being controlled by a Russian oil force. Iran can use oil as a sovereign currency. Remember, oil for food in Iraq? Yes. And anyway. Okay, so and then we got Groovy Teacher, 1968. Groovy, thank you for joining us. They're mirroring what Putin did with Crimea, Ukraine, in my opinion. Maybe I'm way off. Oh, you're talking about with Panama? That's actually an interesting thing. I hadn't considered that, but it tracks, and Donald Trump is certainly more on Putin level than he is with Crimea. So that's actually I'm intrigued by that concept. So I don't know if you're way off or not, but I think you might be onto something, and it's something that I'm going to have to think about. I don't want to say too much about it because it's like a new thought, but I think it's a very good thought. Okay. So there's a lot of these things today are this kind of idea that America comes ahead of everybody else. What's best for America is all that matters. And it's like, why should other countries put America first? And it goes back to this whole love idea of, like, love and kindness means you don't always put other people first or yourself first. It means you put others first. Like, that's the very nature of kindness. Even like Jesus said, like, if you are a Christian, Jesus said, even the sinners love their enemies, not the sinners. But anyway, or love their friends. But like the real Christian love is to love your enemies, because everybody loves their friends, right? What's so special about loving your friends? It's loving your enemies. And what is it to love your enemies? It's to put your enemies first. And so we're not even talking about enemies here. We're just talking about like other countries and not murdering them if they don't go along with what we want to do. But that's what they're actually threatening, to go out and kill people from other countries that don't agree with them by starting wars if they don't do what we want them to do. So, I have issues with that. Okay, and so now let's go to this next clip.
And then we were running these giant deficits, and everyone was buying us.
Is it just me, or does this guy look like the poop emoji?
Think about it. In 1980, we owned more of the rest of the world than they owned of us. And now.
Okay. He's talking about like a quarter of a century or half a century ago almost. 1980 was 45 years ago. And so what? And why? I mean, like, how much of that is because of conservative economics? Like, anyway. And finally, why is it that it's okay if we own stuff in the rest of the world, but the rest of the world can't own stuff in us? Again, why is it that we have to be, winning,
This year,
so to speak?
the rest of the world owns $18 trillion.
Which is, by the way, like less than 10% of the United States. So it's not, which is really not that significant. And it's not like when you say they own it, it's not like that percentage belongs to that country. It means that there is a company in England that owns a farm or whatever. And, like that doesn't mean that they aren't paying taxes in America or doing business in America. It just means that it's owned. Like, this is so what? This is really in the area of so what? And they make it sound like this big deal, but why is it a big deal? I don't understand. So what? So what? The rest of the world owns $18 trillion of U.S. stuff. And what?
More of us than we own of them. It's just not right. And thank God Donald Trump's in the White House.
Okay, so one, it's just not right. Why isn't it just not right? And then two, how is Donald Trump and tariffs going to solve? Are people going to be like, oh, we have to pay tariffs now? How is that going to change the thing he's talking about? He's talking about foreign countries owning property in the United States. Tariffs aren't going to change that. Tariffs aren't going to have any impact on that at all. But he's using this really weird thing that's not even a problem to justify tariffs, which aren't going to solve the thing that's not a problem.
Because he's the only president who would ever take this on and fix it for America.
No, he's the only president stupid enough to think that starting a trade war is going to solve problems.
Okay.
Like, you notice they have given about 12 different justifications for the trade war since he started the trade war. None of them have come to pass. Okay.
The court has ordered the return of this person and that the Trump administration should do it. They're paying an authoritarian leader in El Salvador to hold people in the worst imaginable types of prisons that he has sent there without any due process. And this isn't just about Mr. Garcia. This is about every American understanding that this president is making an assault on the due process rights that are afforded to people in our country. Everybody from Anton Scalia to other conservative think tanks have said very clearly, you cannot disappear people off American streets. We are a nation of rules, and due process is clearly one of them. And to erode the due process rights of anyone is a threat to the due process rights of everyone. This is a democratic slippage, and we all should be speaking out against it.
Now, I don't know, I've read a lot of books, so I don't know what books other people have read, but there's a book called The Mother of the Disappeared, which is about the people that were being disappeared in Argentina back in like the 70s and 80s. And I highly recommend anybody read that book. And I remember reading that and just thinking like that would never happen here. But here we are. And Corey is right that if it can happen to anyone, it can happen to everyone. There are some people that are like, well, he's a gang member. And it's like, well, there's no evidence he's a gang member. There is there might be, like, ICE might be saying he's a gang member, but accusation alone does not mean that you're guilty of something. And that's kind of the whole point of due process, right? You can't just accuse somebody of something and that stands alone, especially when they're sitting there and they're talking about the weaponization of the Justice Department and how, Donald Trump has been so victimized by the actual use of the actual Justice Department because of crimes he actually committed, actually was indicted for by actual grand juries, and then actually tried for and actually convicted of by actual juries. Like, somehow that is all weaponization of the Justice Department, but grabbing people off the street and deporting them to foreign prisons is okay with them. Like, this is, I honestly don't understand. I sometimes I will be like, I don't understand, and I don't understand. Like, I cannot process it in my brain. Doesn't mean that I don't understand that people are hateful and mean and cruel, but I just don't understand how they can be that hateful and mean and cruel. Like, like, for me, I can't process doing that to somebody. Like emotionally and mentally and logically, I cannot process like doing that to somebody or justifying doing that to somebody. And so when you have people that are claiming to be Christians, it's like so far removed from being a Christian. And I can understand then why people like Neverfall are just like, I don't want, like, Christians suck. And I understand why you would think that when all your exposure is people that are like that. And Rob says because the bar is extremely low for probable cause, which is true. But even then, even the Supreme Court unanimously decided that, like, this is not enough. And I just like this is a guy that not only was not proven guilty, he already went to immigration court and proved that he was going to be persecuted. He had already had his asylum case adjudicated by a judge who said, you can't return him to, like, you can't do this. They didn't just nab somebody off the street. They literally went against a previous court order. And just based on accusation, without any probable cause, without, like, they cannot say what it was that made them think he's a gang member. They admitted that they were wrong. But now he's over there and they're like, oh, we can't do anything about it. Why don't you fucking ask? Like, if the president is coming, can't you just say, hey, by the way, do you think you could send this guy back? That was kind of a boo-boo on our part. We're spending all this money paying you to take our prisoners. How about you send one of them back? Like, we have no power. We don't have any power to negotiate there. We can negotiate an international trade war, but we can't negotiate one innocent person that was wrongly deported, illegally deported. We can't negotiate to have him brought back. Are you that inept? Are you that incompetent? Are you that impotent? What is it? Is it that you can't do it or that you won't do it? Because if you can't do it, we can always get another president who can. Like, to me, this one is, and it's not just about, like, I keep, like, I've had people in YouTube and on Twitter try and argue that the guy is a gang member because that's what the Trump administration keeps saying. But if he's a gang member, that has to be proven. It cannot just be an accusation. You have to prove it. Where's the proof? That's the whole point of due process. Because if they can say he's a gang member and deport him, then they can say you're a gang member and deport you. And you've even got the president now talking about sending people to El Salvador that are American citizens, people that disagree with him. So, like, we're in the practice stages of disappearing people right now. We're in the practice stages. It's only a matter of time before it starts being other people. Like, this is in my lifetime, this is the biggest civil rights violation that I know of. You know, I was born in 67. There might be, and I'm not saying like there weren't worse things. Like, obviously, like slavery was kind of a big civil rights. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the history of the country, but in my lifetime, I think this is probably the worst violation. Maybe I'm missing something. If you want to drop a comment saying what I'm missing, then that's fine. But like, just nabbing people off the street and sending them to prisons in other countries, that's, like, to me, just mind-boggling. And I don't understand how more Republican congressmen and senators are not against this, because damn well that if Biden had taken like some right-wing extremists and shipped them off to a third world country to serve time in prison, that they would have had something to say about that. But it's almost like, well, they're brown and not a white supremacist, so it's okay. Especially, like, we don't even need to prove he's guilty of anything. All right.
We did see the markets drop. The bond market was spooked. Consumer confidence has plummeted, and inflation fears are at the high.
Now we want to talk about the trade war in this week's stock market, and then one of the most ridiculous statements you'll ever hear. And if Peter Navarro's talking, that it's going to be something ridiculous.
Highest level since 1981. Let me just ask you.
But we did have the greatest rally in stock market history for many, many decades this last week.
We had the greatest rally in like decades this week. Well, that's like saying, I can't even think of an analogy. It's so stupid. We had the greatest rally. We had a big stock market jump. I wouldn't even call it a rally because it didn't even go all the way back. It only went up, recovered half its losses before it lost 1,000 points again the next day. And the only reason it rallied is because the president of the United States was trying to manipulate the stock market and had already called all these tariffs and then said, oh, they're off, and then that's what caused the rallies, and then maybe not quite off, and then it went back down. But he wants to like act like Trump did something to, like dramatically improve the stock market. Look, dude, it's down 5,000 points from its high. It's down 10% from when Trump took office. So shut up about the greatest rally. That's just a ridiculous statement. And the ridiculous woman over here isn't going to call him on the ridiculous statement.
They're down from when the president announced his policies overall. Let me ask you, so that we can get this information to folks. Give me the top line number. How many countries is the administration currently negotiating with to get a trade deal?
So she's asking for the number of countries to get a trade deal. And you keep hearing them talk about how there's all these countries that keep calling in and calling in and calling in. But we have not. I think there's been like the EU offered a 0 for 0 deal and Vietnam offered a 0 for 0 deal. And they both got rejected because somehow no tariffs on either side is not even.
Well, let me see how many I can do. And remember, Kristen, we talked.
Did you know that if you handcuff Peter Navarro, he won't be able to talk?
Offline about this. We started doing this long before we announced the pause in the reciprocal tariffs in anticipation of this. So we've got the
15?
UK.
I don't know who's lying about what or whatever, but anyway, other than Peter Navarro.
We've got the EU. We've got India. We've got Japan. We've got North.
There's no record other than what he's saying right now. Like nobody is actually negotiating. He's just naming countries.
Korea. We've got Indonesia. We've got Israel, and they're just lining up.
They're not lining up. Nobody is lining up. There is not any traction on a single deal. There is not one country that is even close to making a deal with the United States. And they make it sound like everybody is just about to make a deal. Nobody's making a deal. There aren't any deals to be made. There aren't. Nobody wants a deal. Nobody is dealing. Like nobody. We do not have one country that we can say this is where we're at with the deal. Like there's none. There's none. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Zip. So why are they lying about it? Because they know that starting an international trade war might not be a good idea. So they've got to sell it as though like, oh, this is what we're making progress. No, you're not. There's not a single country. It's been a couple of weeks now. Not one country has made a deal that you have found acceptable. Only a couple have made any offers at all, which were, by the way, extremely reasonable. But it's like, if we aren't taking somebody else to the cleaner, then that means, like we're getting wronged. Okay. Let's go to this one.
Every single day and put a spotlight on the bad behavior. And that's being.
This is AI, right? Because there's like sunlight behind his head.
Nice about it, of communist China. Why is it that we allow them to roll over America and undermine this great country every day?
Why is it that we allow them to undermine this country? So she's talking about China. She's asking Stephen Miller a question where the premise of it is just justifying his own racism. And, like, as I've said before on this program, I understand Stephen Miller is upset because he got shoved in the locker by brown people. And, the wounds are still fresh. He just got shoved in there like a couple of weeks ago by a junior high Mexican girl. So, he's still angry about it.
And they've done it for decades. It is shameful.
They've done what for decades? And I'm not saying that China and their trade practices with the U.S. are perfectly fair, and nobody does. But they don't talk about details here. They never talk about details. They never talk about what is actually needs to be remedied or how to remedy it. What they talk about is China bad, America good. So that's like a totally different conversation. You'll notice he does not say anything productive.
Core elements of our industrial base, our medical base, our manufacturing base, our pharmaceutical base, our defense base, our electronic components, our chips, our critical minerals, that all of the things that power a country, we've allowed those supply chains to be centered in China.
I mean, that's just not true.
To give China the ability to exert that kind of control over the rest of the world.
But I mean, like, none of that is true. And so he's got this like shocked, disdained, like, oh, how can we be doing this? Like, but it's not true. Like, it's not true. Yes, we have unfair trade practices with China, but no, China is not controlling all of our supply chains in every critical area. That's just a lie. There's nothing to back what he is saying. And he won't say anything. He will just make these proclamations and then move on. And the of course, he's being interviewed by Fox News, so nobody's going to challenge him on anything. It's just all these Fox News watchers now are going, yeah, China owns our defense contractors, supply chain, or whatever.
World through these illicit means, that's unthinkable. President
Through
Trump,
illicit
history
means.
will record
Okay.
that the action.
What are the illicit? So now he's kind of jumped to another level where it's like illicit. Okay, what are they doing that's illicit? Like, yes, China legally owns some things in America, and yes, we have people in America that have contracts with companies in China. But what is illicit about that? What is wrong with that? Why is that? There's nothing illegal about it. Everything is perfectly legal. What is illicit? What is illicit, Stephen? You succubus.
Actions President Trump has taken in recent days were the beginning of saving the West from.
Now he's like saving the West. Like, what does that mean? Saving the West by starting a trade war? How is he saving the West? Where are the specifics? What is he doing to save the West? What is the danger the West is in other than from Donald Trump? Because I'm telling you, what he's doing is going to drive more countries to trade with China than to have trade with the United States. He is helping China right now. Do you understand that? Like, hopefully you guys understand that. But does Stephen Miller understand that? Because I don't think he does. Right now, nobody in the world is benefiting more from Donald Trump's trade war than China.
Complete economic domination by another power.
But look.
Like, oh my goodness. There's got to be a toilet somewhere that somebody can flush Stephen Miller down. Because that is all he is worth doing. He needs to, he's just a big piece of poop. My wife tells me I have to stop swearing, so I'm trying to be better. All right. Did I do this one?
Every single day and put a spotlight on the bad behavior.
That's the one I just did. Okay. Oh, this one.
At the same time, we have to root out fraud, waste, and abuse. We have to eliminate people on, for example, on Medicaid who are not actually eligible to be there. Able-bodied workers, for example, young men who are.
Okay, first of all, able-bodied workers are not on Medicaid. And secondly, why is it young men can't be disabled? Like, this idea that there is like all kinds of scams on Social Security and Medicaid from people that could work and are perfectly healthy is just complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. And so he is either lying through his teeth or completely uninformed. One of the two. But it is just objectively, factually true that actual cases of people, like there's like on the medical side, sometimes there's fraud, but like where people are billing people that are, like billing for fake patients or whatever, but that's no reason to cut people's services. Like, in case you don't know, disability is really, really hard to get on. And it's not like if you get on disability, there's all these like TikTok videos that really kind of piss me off with, oh, did you know that you can get disability if you just fill out this form? And it's like, no, you can't get disability if you just fill out this form. To get disability, you have to like really, really prove you have a disability. There's only you have to have certain only certain conditions qualify. You have to prove them. You have to have like a year's worth of medical records to where you went and tried to have it treated and didn't have it, successful. I don't know of anybody that's ever gotten disability in less than a year. I mean, I don't know a lot of people on disability, but the people I know, they all took well over a year. And you have to like have like a mountain of medical records with like all kinds of like doctor's visits, and it's not easy to get on disability. Nobody gets on disability fraudulently. And then if you do get on it, you're only allowed to work so many hours and make so much money, which is not very much, and you're not paid very much. It's like if you're younger, you're probably making like $1,000 a month on disability, and then you get your Medicaid, right? But you're not making a lot of. Try living off $1,000 a month. You know, if you think you can live off of $1,000 a month, even like not having to worry about your health insurance, it's not a lot of money. It's not. And this idea that people are just staying home and playing video games and living high on the hog and, whatever, on fake disabilities, like that just doesn't exist. And so I want to go back to what I was saying at the beginning about love and kindness. Like, where is the love? Where's the empathy? Where's the kindness? Where's the compassion for people that are disabled, that like cannot work? And, we've got, I know that COVID was supposed to be fake to these clowns, but long COVID is real too. And as much as 5% of people that have COVID could have symptoms of long COVID, and about 20% of those, so about 1% of the population of the United States, could have permanent long COVID as a disability. And, like I just personally, I have long COVID. I've been struggling with it. If I wake up and I've got a headache and I try to work, then I end up just vomiting into a bucket all day long, and the next day too. And it's not just coming out the north end either. It's coming out the south end. And like I can barely even watch TV some days. Like some days I can't even watch TV. I just have to like curl up in bed and just close my eyes and hope I can sleep, which is not that easy because, I have to wake up to vomit. All right. I'm not able to work a 40-hour week like that. And so, I've been trying to do the YouTube thing. So, that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to get to where I can make an income off of social media. That's what I'm doing, right? It's not there yet, but fortunately my previous job was well enough paying that I'm able to support myself for a while. But anyway, if you're on Twitter, that's why I'm asking you to come to YouTube, because I'm getting really close to where I might be able to start supporting myself off of YouTube money. And Elon is like cutting my he's like nerfing my account. Back they're like, and I know people are like thinking that this is made up or whatever from liberal people, but Elon is really nerfing some of the major accounts. I only have about 70,000 followers on Twitter. I had about 85,000 before everybody started leaving. But like a year ago, I was getting 25 to 30 million views per month. Now I'm getting like 1 to 2 million views per month. So on my Twitter feed. So like when you and this did not happen like gradually. It's like in August, I think I had like 40 million, and then, or I'm sorry, in September I had like 40 million impressions, and then in November I had like 2 million. It fell off a cliff, and I'm not the only one. I know a lot of other larger accounts. I don't know what you consider a large account, but if you were to say anything over 50,000 is a large account, then I know, you know, like a lot of people that they just had this precipitous drop out of nowhere. So anyway, I was making some money off of Twitter, but now that's not as much. So anyway, if you want to click over on the YouTube link, then that's fine. But if you don't, no big deal. I just, you know, whatever.
Who should never be on the program at all. When you have people on the program that are draining the resources, it takes it away from the people.
But you don't have people on the program that are draining the resources. That is just a made up thing. That is a completely made up thing. And so what you're doing then is, if you don't have people that are draining resources from the program, and then you drain resources from the program, you're draining resources from those people, and they only are making $1,000 a month as it is. So what are they supposed to do, Mike? What are they supposed to do? You claim you're a Christian. Where's the kindness in that? Where's the love in that? Why are you talking about the people that are made up, that are taking advantage of the program, and not taking like what should be the Christian look and the Christian view of the people that need the program? This is the kind of guy that would talk about how people took advantage of Jesus healing people, and, you know, just to get free health care or whatever, just to get free fish. This is so anti-Christian, and it really offends me as a Christian that so many people look at him and they think that's what it means to be a Christian now, because it's not. This man is not a Christian.
That are actually needing it the most and are intended to receive it. You're talking about young single mothers, you know, down on their fortunes at a moment. You know, the people with real disabilities, the elderly.
What is a real disability? Like, how do you know? Like, young single mothers need it, but not young single men. How is it that young single men can't be disabled? Like, why? Like, who? Where are you getting your information? You're just making shit up.
And we've got to protect and preserve that
trying to get better at that
program. So we're going to preserve the integrity of it in this process.
You're not preserving the integrity of it. The integrity of it is fine. What you're doing is you're just destroying it under a false premise, which means you have no integrity yourself. Like, maybe people with integrity should be the ones monitoring the integrity.
We have lots of categories of areas where the government is too large, it does too many things.
Too large for what? Does too many things for what? This is like, since my entire life, I have heard about government being too big. Too big for what? What is, like, too is a relative term. Too big to do what? And so this is like, just, you know, I think it's a very healthy exercise every human being, every American should take. And I'll tell you a story. When I was living in Liberia, I was in high school, and I worked for the high school newspaper, right? And I interviewed a guy named Marshall McCauley, who was the political advisor for Liberia at the time. And he was helping Liberia write its constitution. The Liberia's actual constitution is the one he helped write, the one that exists today. And so I was interviewing him about that, and I was asking him, what is that like? And he said, it's, you know, he was saying it was really interesting. And then he asked me, if you were going to write a new constitution for the United States, would it be exactly the same as the one that exists? Or would you change anything? And I was like, you know, that's a really good question. And I have thought about, that was in 1983, actually, that he asked me that. So now it's been 42 years later. I still think about that question, because I think that is the most significant factor to anything when we vote for anything, when we support a candidate or whatever. We need to start every conversation with, what should the government do? Not is it too big or is it too small? Is it relative? Is it, like whatever? We need to start with what should it do? What is the role of government? And so what role is it too big? What role is it too big for? What is it doing that government should not do? And we can agree to disagree on some of those things, but that should be the discussion, not just these kind of relative things. And, like you'll notice all the MAGAs, they never talk about specifics. They talk about vague generalities and made up, things like people being on disability that shouldn't be. And it's like, you'll notice he did not actually give a percentage of people that are abusing it, because he doesn't have any. And you know why he doesn't have any? Because there's not really any abuse to speak of. So he just comes on talking about this abstract idea that people are abusing it and the government is doing too much. And it's like, none of it is true. And of course, Princess Wino here is not going to, correct him on it, but.
And the Doge efforts and others have highlighted that for the American people. So
No, the Doge efforts have not highlighted anything at all. What the Doge efforts have done is proven that everything is fine, because everything they talk about ends up being untrue. So if you have actual reality of, real fraud, waste, and abuse, then you wouldn't have to lie about it. But if all the fraud, waste, and abuse you have to talk about is lies, then you don't actually have any fraud, waste, and abuse to talk about.
This process, you're going to see in 11 different committees of jurisdiction across the House, members working hand in hand with their sleeves rolled up, working to carve out those inefficiencies.
That's just not, like, that doesn't even mean anything. Oh, you've got people with their sleeves rolled up. Well, I don't care. What are they doing? Like, what is the significance? What have they done? Name one thing they have done. Because otherwise, just walking around with your sleeves rolled up is a photo op. And if talking about it is just a talking op, or whatever you would call that.
We're going to make government.
All right. So anyway, Mike Johnson has this ability to make it sound like he's being reasonable when he's just being a jerk. He said nothing at all. Nothing at all. Other than just made up stuff. And he's going to take they want to take disability away from disabled people. And they want to pretend that makes them like the Christians. Sorry, no, that's not how life works.
Conversations with several countries. It's going to be up to these countries to come to the table, continue coming to the table.
This is back to the trade war thing. And again, several countries coming back to the trade table. Notice he did not name a country.
And make these kinds of offers. The reality.
Make kind of offers. Doesn't mention any offers.
Is we're working around the clock,
working around the clock, day and night. Can't name a country, can't name an offer, but we're working like
night, sharing paper, receiving offers, and giving feedback to these countries with respect to how they can better achieve reciprocal trade with.
Yeah, but nothing that there's not a cogent thing he has said. There are like a substantive thing he has said. This is all just if nothing at all were happening, he could say the exact same thing. So that's why I don't think anything at all is happening. Okay, if Japan said, okay, we will do this deal with this percentage for this percentage, or then fine. And aside from that, here's the other damage that is being done by this. And I think this is extremely significant, and I really wish more journalists would ask about this, is the idea that any president can take office and then just decide they're going to rework all our trade deals with every country and rework tariffs. How is that going to work for the long term? Because now every country is like thinking, if I make a deal with Trump and Trump's only going to be there for 4 years, that means I'm going to have to make a new deal in 4 years. I'm going to make another deal every 4 years. Nobody wants to do that. And it's not just with countries, it's with businesses. And one of the things that is like infuriating with the way that the Trump people talk about this is that they make it sound like it's always a deal between America and China, or America and the EU, but it's not. It's not. Those are tariffs. Those aren't. America has businesses that import and export things. And other countries have businesses, private businesses, that import and export things. So if you're making blue jeans and you import denim from Japan, then your clothing manufacturer that is importing these jeans from somebody else, and you just had your prices go up 10% or 20%. And so now you've got to charge your customers more or whatever. The people that, so then what's going to happen is either you're going to, so you're going to have to change your supplier maybe to try and get something cheaper or something that has a lower tariff. It's not like people are going to start manufacturing textiles in America again because we are at full employment. Like, we keep talking about getting these jobs, and these are jobs nobody wants. That's why anyway, we lose track of the fact that it's between businesses, not between countries. And so these businesses that are doing these transactions, they don't want to have to like reshape their entire supply chain every 4 years because some new president came along. And so if there's no stability there, then they're going to work around the United States. People are going to just stop doing business with America. Whatever the tariff deals are, whatever the trade deals are that are set up between the leaders of the country, that's not going to force private enterprises to do business with Americans. Do you follow me? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you can even be honest. Like, if you are being honest about this, that does not mean that it's necessarily going to be better for America. In fact, it's probably going to be worse because you're going to have businesses that don't want to do business. Even America, like there was the Mr. Beast, who I guess they have some kind of chocolate factory or whatever, chocolate business. And he was saying it's actually easier and cheaper for them now to just skip America entirely and manufacture stuff outside of America when they used to manufacture it in America. So you're actually losing jobs. You're doing the opposite of what you said you were doing. And the instability is only going to make that worse. And so that should be a major factor. And also that instability, people that are actually involved in businesses and stuff understand that, which is why there is such volatility in the stock market. It's not just about the trade war. It's about all the ramifications of it. And we're only beginning to see the beginning of it. Like, just the tariffs right now, that is the majority of the volatility. But a lot of the volatility is also wondering if it goes through, if we really go through with this, it's going to be a lot worse. A lot worse.
The United States.
But 90 days could be a rolling deadline, is what I hear you saying.
Okay, so yeah, 90 days.
Well, I would not say that. In the president's cabinet meeting last week, he was asked about this, and he said, well, we'll see. I mean, my goal is to get meaningful deals before 90 days.
Yeah.
So they're like sitting there saying that they want to have 90 days to get these deals. We don't have any deals. And so now they're just, maybe are they going to push them back? Trump's saying, well, whatever. But all of this is just more uncertainty, more volatility, more chance for people to look and say, you know, I'm just not going to deal with this. I'm going to go to another country. I'm going to go to, not even go to another country. I'm just going to go to a business in another country and deal with them, because I cannot have this uncertainty. Like, you have to plan stuff out months in advance. You have to know how much money, what you're buying is going to cost and what you're selling is going to cost. You can't just arbitrarily change it whenever the president of the United States has a whim. But that's what you're going to have to do if you're dealing with American businesses, through no fault of the American businesses, right? But that is all going to create uncertainty in American businesses, which is going to actually hurt American businesses. But nobody, like, that's not the part we're talking about. I've heard American businesses talking about it, and I really wish the media would cover it more, but that's like the real issue here.
And I think we're going to be there with several countries in the next few weeks.
Ambassador.
I think we're gonna be there with several countries in the next few weeks. Okay, so now we've, like, what does that mean? What countries? What is there? What does that mean? What is the next few weeks? Because he just kind of didn't confirm that it was all going to be within 90 days. So next few weeks is how long? Is it 12 weeks? Is it 15 weeks? Because I don't think a few weeks is like 90 days. I think of it as like 3, maybe 4. But he's talking about 90 days. They you know, like, maybe done, maybe not done. And we haven't heard about a single country. Again, not one country have we had that has made any progress at all. We are, like, no country are we closer to making a deal with than we were. Not one. And they keep making it sound like we are on the precipice of having, like, all these countries. And all we have to go to base that on is people from the Trump administration saying it. And I'm sorry, but the Trump administration is not the most credible source of things in the world. Everyone there lies constantly, insidiously, consistently, and persistently. They are the biggest group of liars that have ever occupied the White House. And that's including the 2017 through 20, like, number 45 was not as bad as this. Everything that these people say is a lie. Everything. You can't trust anything. If they said the sky was blue, I would run outside to see what happened to the sky. That's how much they lie. Okay. So anyway, that was all the clips for today. I just, I wasn't planning on getting on today, but I just, my mind was running. And so I thought, well, why don't we just jump on and see what's going on. So anyway, thank you guys for joining that joined. Appreciate the people that I met for the first time, like Groovy, Neverfall. We need to talk some point. But anyway, if you're still here, appreciate you guys and everybody on Twitter. And I will talk to you later.